So what's going on, guys? I'm Black Ops Amazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel where today we are going to be ranking the most evil characters within Call of Duty Zombies. This is going to be quite a difficult one because we have had a lot of bad people, entities, monsters, villains within the Zombies mode, some which are deceiving. They look nice and normal on the outside, but the actions they have taken in the storyline would say otherwise. There are way more characters I could put onto this list, but I've compressed it down into my top 10, so let's get straight into it. In at number 10, the least most evil character is the premise younger version of Edward Richtofen, the nicest one, the man who tried so very hard to do the right thing. Primus Rtoph has a lot of up and down moments. On one hand, he helped save his friends from fading out of existence by collecting blood vials for them, but on the other hand, he knew that doing that would keep them in an endless cycle of torture. Primus Rtoph had read the Canorium and knew about his past, present and future, everything that involved him and anyone close to him. This is the reason I would say he does deserve to be on this list. Even though he was the nicest of the Richtophens that we've seen, he still lied, he still deceived, he was still selfish. Everything he was doing benefited him until the cycle was broken. It was really only in Blood of the Dead that he did finally do the right thing, playing a part in breaking the cycle, sacrificing himself on the dark mechanism, allowing his friends to leave the Alcatraz pocket dimension. But everything he did before that, all of the adventures he went on, was in an effort to keep himself from death. Which, I suppose you can't blame him, he is human, but he's not quite as nice as he would make out. Not to mention, he did stab the reporter in Shadows of Evil, killing him. Yes, it was in self-defense, but Primus Rtoph deserves to be at number 10. In at number 9 is Samantha Maxis. Now you might think with all of the evil things we've seen her do, she should be way further down on this list, but there are two things to take into consideration here. One, she is a child, and two, she was corrupted by the Dark Ether. All of Samantha's bad actions were the result of her corruption and the Shadowman's manipulation. All Samantha ever wanted was to play with her dog Fluffy and be loved by her father. Yet her dog ended up turning into a hellhound and her father was never there for her, and her mother died during childbirth. Samantha was also experimented on by the Ultimus version of Richtofen before becoming trapped inside of the MPD. There are a lot of excuses you can give to her, but the amount of people that died because of her actions, Samantha was in control of the zombies from World War II Black Ops 1, killing hundreds, possibly thousands, maybe even millions of people on Earth, sending the undead after members of Group 935 in Germany, the Americans in the Pentagon. A lot of innocent people lost their lives because of Samantha's corruption. She is the OG villain, she was the first. We do also see a grown-up Samantha Maxis in the current zombie storyline, who has also done some pretty bad things, but nothing compared to what she did when she was 10 years old. Coming in at number 8 is her father, Dr. Maxis. The thing about Ludwig is, he doesn't have the excuse of being corrupted by the Dark Ether, and whilst he technically killed nowhere near as many people as Samantha, well, he did destroy Earth in the non-canon ending of Black Ops 2. It was non-canon though, so you kind of can't count it, but it does show you what would have happened if Maxis got his way and buried. He would have killed millions upon millions of people. But if you take into consideration the fact that he was not only a terrible father, he was never there for Samantha, is it a crime being a terrible father? That alone isn't enough to place him at number 8. But what is when he killed himself in front of her, only to bring out her anger. Imagine your father shooting himself in front of you on purpose just to piss you off. In World at War, Dr. Maxis also signed a deal with Nazi Germany, creating an undead army for them in return for funding. He experimented on animals and people in his teleportation tests. He left Samantha in Ultimus Rtophen's care, knowing something wasn't right with him, and she ended up being experimented on by him. Maxis's judgment is horrible. He is a selfish character. In Kino der Toten, when his assistant and lover Sophia had been bitten by a zombie, before the effects could kick in, he poisoned her, removed her brain, and placed her inside of a machine without her permission. And to top it all off, on the map moon, he convinced Ultimus, Dempsey, Takio and Nikolai to launch rockets from the moon to the Earth, fracturing it and, more than likely, killing millions of people. When you think about it, there is an argument to say Maxis could be number 1. In at number 7 is Brutus, the Warden, the man who worked with the Illuminati and the Shadowman to convert Alcatraz into a hellish prison as a trap to ensnare Edward Richtofen, where he would torment the souls of Sal, Finn, the Weasel and Billy. trapping them in a never-ending loop. I think unlike all of the other characters so far, Brutus does actually look evil, and whilst he hasn't killed or hurt as many people as Dr. Maxis or Samantha, his intentions to unleash the Apothicans from the Dark Ether could have been catastrophic, and luckily he didn't achieve his goal. At the end of the day, Brutus was just a pawn of the Shadowman, promised eternal life and embarrassed of his mortal form. It was he who executed the three mobsters, Sal, Billy and Finn, in order to create a pocket dimension. In at number 6 is Cornelius Purnell, otherwise known as Avagadro. Purnell originally was a normal guy, an American handler in World War II who would send men to different missions. He sent Peter McCain to investigate Group 935, yet it was his lack of compassion that would later get him into the situation that he did. Purnell sent many men on missions, knowing it could potentially be their last, and he didn't really care about sending them to their deaths. He only wanted to work his way up through the ranks. Eventually, Purnell would found a company called Broken Arrow, which he would use as a front for ascending to Agatha. Purnell would become so obsessed with reaching it that he would eventually become corrupted. Constructing a device called the APD based off the Moon Pyramid device, it would be used as a tool of interrogation, stepping inside of it, allowing him to force confessions of individuals. One of these individuals was Yuri Zavosky. In fact, Cornelius tortured and electrocuted Yuri to the point of death. He fried him. He also had the very man that used to work for him and died for him after being brought back to life, Peter McCain, thrown into a cell, and it all ended when an experiment went wrong. Inside of the APD, a shard of element 115 shot up his spine, evolving him into a very powerful entity known as Avagadro. Avagadro killed many people at his Broken Arrow facility before he was contained back inside of the pyramid, where from within he would have the power to control the undead. Next up at number 5 is Ultimus Rtoph, another one of the OG villains. You could argue he was the first. He became corrupted before Samantha. He just didn't have as much power as her. But more than anyone, he is the definition of evil. After touching the MPD pyramid on the moon, Ultimus Rtoph was corrupted by the Dark Ether and began hearing the many voices of corruption in his head, including that of the Shadowman's, where he became his apprentice, doing everything he asked. Torturing Samantha, teleporting her and Maxis away, experimenting on Dempsey, Takeo and Nikolai, injecting them with that much element 115, they would forget who they were, suffering from its side effects of paranoia, delusion and memory loss. His grand scheme was to control the undead for himself and reach Agatha. And in Black Ops 2, he achieved half of that, taking control of the undead, where he would then begin to manipulate survivors back down on Earth to do his bidding. I would argue there is still a little bit of that Primus Richtofen within him. He made sure his scientist friends, Dr. Schuster, had jobs after Group 935 was abandoned, making a deal with the Americans to hire some of Group 935's employees when the war ended. And before he was corrupted by the Dark Ether, even though he was still a sick doctor scientist, his intentions were good, but he did so many messed up things that can't be covered over. The fourth most evil character in COD Zombies is Dr. Monty. Essentially, the god of the cycle, the man who had almost ultimate power. The thing about Dr. Monty is, he looks like a regular being, and to an extent, he is. But he is so much more than that. Dr. Monty had the ability to give us the mystery box, the power-ups, the perk drinks, the chalk drawings of weapons on the walls. He had magic powers, he helped us, but he did all of this, similar to Primus Richtofen, to keep us trapped in a never-ending cycle, which in turn would ensure his survival. Dr. Monty would go to any length to ensure the cycle was never broken, and we saw when it was, he transformed into his corrupted form and ate Dr. Maxis. Monty, like many people in the zombie storyline, was corrupted by the Dark Ether. In the beginning he tried to do the right thing, but as the cycle he created went on, repeating hundreds, possibly thousands or millions of times, watching it play out again and again and again, he would have seen all of the suffering that was a part of it, watching it and doing nothing about it, because he knew if he put an end to it, that would also be the end of him. For him, it was always about control over his perfect universe, Agatha, his control and manipulation over humanity. At number 3 on my list is the Forsaken. His original name was Zykov, a human that was ultimately used by the Soviet Union to shut down a particle accelerator known as the cyclotron, but the only way he could do this was to enter the Dark Ether and close it from within, which resulted in him becoming trapped in there. Rtoph was forced to fend off against the many creatures of the Dark Ether, the undead, and bigger monsters. As time went on and the more creatures Rtoph killed, he started to take their power for himself, consuming those he defeated in combat and harnessing their abilities. The more powerful Rtoph became, he would eventually be able to come up against Elder Gods, defeating them and taking their powers until he became the most powerful entity within the Dark Ether, becoming the Forsaken. One of his main abilities was to change appearance, allowing him to manipulate people. He would communicate with humans on the outside world using a computer device, pretending to be loved ones, family members who had died, hoping to convince them to release him from the Dark Ether so that he could consume Earth for himself. After being trapped in there for 40 Earth years or 400 Dark Ether years, the Forsaken had seen humans kill themselves, waging war against one another, so much to the point that he believed humanity didn't deserve any more chances. He tried everything he could to re-enter our world so that he could take it for himself. Within the Dark Ether, the Forsaken would steal the life essence of souls trapped within here. He would torment, kill, build an army of zombies. He is the definition of evil. He just didn't quite get to achieve what he set out. In at number 2 is the Shadowman, a man who was originally in a very similar situation to Dr. Monty. Both beings that existed in the beginning of the cycle, both beings became corrupted by the Dark Ether, but unlike Dr. Monty, who was only trying to save him, it was entirely his fault, where in the end the Shadowman became an agent of the Apothecans, working for them, zipping around the multiverse in an attempt to free them from the Dark Ether. The Shadowman was the OG master of manipulation. It was him who told Ultimus Rtoph to do all of the evil things he did. It was him who convinced the Warden to transform Alcatraz into a pocket dimension. It was him who tricked the Shadows of Evil characters into performing rituals and committing acts of murder, manipulating whoever would listen to his whispers in order to acquire his grand goal of total nothingness and the chaos that lurks within the between, seeking the total destruction of humanity and life as a whole. And then finally, in my opinion, the most evil character, the number one villain in Call of Duty Zombies is Cortex the Deathless. One of the many elder gods present within the Dark Ether, himself being one of the most powerful deities in the realm. He would start off his life alongside his bride, Maxis, who were born of the royal bloodline, but due to Cortex's clan historically murdering their parents, of which Cortex did the same, killing his own father and mother, after his wife had a child, scared it would do the same to him as he had done to his family, he committed unspeakable acts of cruelty, bestowing an unknown fate to his child. Cortex forced his wife to bear the mask of the Sisters of Agony, a female group of assassins that worked for him, and erased her memory. He would also wage war against any other clan or entity within the Dark Ether, destroying and burning down land, creating the Corrupted Lands. Aside from that, he would use an artifact he created to manipulate people on Earth, where they would worship him, almost becoming cults. In some instances, Cortex would gift his cult leaders relics that would ultimately bring nothing good to humanity. He also used his powers to help Oberfuhrer von List to raise an army of the undead for the Nazis. When I think of all of the villains in the COD Zombies universe, Cortex the Deathless, it's in his name, fits the definition. So there we go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How would you rank these characters, or are there any others that I missed off this list that you think should be included? Hopefully you've enjoyed. Drop a like rating if you have. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel to stay up to date with the latest content, and I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, goodbye.